Good morning to everybody in our section of the world. I'm not sure where everybody's dialed in from. So here in Germany, it's 10:05, and we're happy to have you in our discussion today on the topic of tackling your top L&D challenges in 2025. So we'll start off the presentation. So quick introduction. Basically, I'm your host. My name is Kenneth Littlepage, and I'll be hosting and speaking about guiding everything here, the discussion. And with me today, we have a panel of speakers, our expert panel, which is Dr. Sabine Zander, Director of Innovation Lab, Scheer IMC. Sabine, if you want to quickly introduce yourself.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be here, and I'm looking forward to our discussion. My name is Sabine Zander, and I lead the Research and Innovation Department at Scheer IMC. In my team, we conduct a variety of publicly funded projects in the fields of learning technologies, digital education, and data ecosystems. And we do that in collaboration with a wide range of partners from both industry and academia. And currently, we are also developing a prototype for improved skill management within our LMS, which closely aligns with some of the topics in the report. So I'm, again, looking forward to discuss with you.
Okay. Next, we have Roman Muth, who's a board member at Scheer IMC. Good morning, Roman.
Good morning, everybody. Happy to be here, discuss and get also new information from your side. So please use the chat there. I'm Roman. I'm the CTO of IMC, so responsible for products in IMC, product development and global hosting. So I'm happy to have here to chat and to discuss with the colleagues here.
Okay, and the third member of our panel is Marcel Mutz, Chief of Staff at the August-Wilhelm Scheer Institute. Good morning, Marcel.
Yeah, good morning also from my side. Thanks for having me. I'm working at the August-Wilhelm Scheer Institute. We are an application-oriented digitization institute focusing on developing innovative solutions with direct industry partners. Meaning we do not do a lot of theoretical stuff. We try to get it on the street and try to derive direct value out of it. I have a background in machine learning and AI, data science in general, and am responsible also for the digital learning lab here at August-Wilhelm Scheer Institute.
Okay, cool. So this is our panel of three experts who will be discussing the top challenges in 2025. So if you have questions, please do ask them in the chat. We'll try to be aware of the chat. If we shouldn't get to your questions during the presentation, anything that's listed in the chat, there will be time at the end to discuss. So let's take a look at these challenges that we're facing in 2025. So challenge number one is engaging learners in a crowded digital landscape. And if we look at the next slide, the findings that we have is that one of the biggest challenges that L&D professionals are faced when training their target audiences is ensuring that content is engaging and holds the learner's attention. So let's see what our panel has for insights on those topics. We'll start with Sabine.
Yeah, what we're seeing in the work with our clients and within external companies certainly aligns with what is being shown in the report. Certainly, one of the main challenges is motivation among employees. There is this principle that we call "what is in it for me?" So each employee also, of course, is driven by its own motivation. And the question is here whether it's intrinsic, whether it's external, and what can the company do to support that. So 2 things that we are focusing on within the Innovation Lab is looking at ways of how skill management and skill management's offerings to improve learning paths as well as career paths that are made visible to the learner to understand why they're learning certain things and how they can make their way up possibly within the company as as a expert or within the management field. And another thing is that we're also focusing on, and what we have seen makes a difference in terms of motivation, is the implementation of so-called micro-credentials. These are small certifications for some people would call them learning nuggets, or in any case, small units that do not require as much time compared to an explored learning path. And that certainly drives employees' motivation as well, because they have something they can take with them and show even to the outside of what they're capable of.
Okay. Micro credentials, I think, is probably going to be a pretty hot topic. So, Roman, I'm going to give you that question to talk maybe a little bit more about micro credentials, but also, are you surprised that ensuring, since you're responsible for both an LMS and content, so you're familiar with both sides of the equation, are you surprised that ensuring content is engaging and holds learners' attention is still so high on the list?
Yes. I mean, as we always said, content is king. So, I mean, at the end, we're doing learning management system also to provide the content. And it is on one side, which kind of content the content is, of course, attracting you. It must be nice content. And then, of course, the people like to use it much more and enjoy the part. As Sabine said, it makes really sense to make micro parts of it. But it's also how people can access the content. Accessing the content on the right place, in the right infrastructure system, there where you currently are. So we have customers, they want to use the content directly on the workplace. They don't have a laptop there. We saw also in the report that mobile is not really used or not really bringing the attention. But people and learners don't want to log into the LMS because they're saying, now I'm taking 1 hour, 2 hour times to learn. They really want to have the content there where they use it. So there is the headless scenario, which could help you really to support this kind of learning. In addition to the micro learning there in micro parts, it's really effective to put the content there where it's directly needed or where people don't expect an LMS in the internal systems there, just in the link in the intranet, where you can directly put a link to the content to get them to learn. They don't have to log in there. They just use it directly and they can learn this 10 minutes part. And when you spread this over their whole working day, it's much, much easier for them to keep their attention on smaller parts and spread it over your whole intranet and not into a learning system.
Okay. You also mentioned in your explanation here a headless scenario. So maybe not everybody in the discussion round or that's listening is familiar with that. For me, it was even me working here. It's a new terminology that I just discovered. So can you give us a little insight on what you mean by headless scenario?
Yeah, headless scenarios, they're coming from, or the wording is coming from content management systems in earlier times. And it separates the system, the learning management system, in a front-end part and a, let's say, usage back-end part. So the management system offers APIs where you can directly jump into the content, jump into your back-end, jump in this, what you want to do. So you have the possibility to create a link directly to the content with inclusive your part of logging in, so a single sign-on version, and you don't need a front end there or use the front end of your LMS provider. And you have the possibility with this also to display your courses which you booked, your personal information in a so-called panel somewhere, wherever you want to place it in your ecosystem within your company.
Okay, cool. One more thing when looking at this list, one more thing kind of jumped out at me. I'm not sure if my conjecture is correct at this point, but do you see at the top of the list we have ensuring content is engaging and holds the learner's attention, and at the bottom of the list we have limited access to skilled trainers and subject matter experts. Do you find that a little bit how should I say, contradictory? Because it would seem to me if the engaging content is hard, or it's hard to ensure engaging content, then access to subject matter experts should be limited. And here it appears to be not the case. So there's definitely resources available to go to, but are these resources then not offering the correct solutions to their customers? Do you care to speculate on that?
So I'm not sure if limited access to skilled trainers has something to do with the limited budget for deep training. So if perhaps that might cost their extra money to give the trainers directly access to the LMS. On the other hand, if you have a really skilled trainer, you have experts there, they can do very easy content with a mobile phone. Now, everybody from us has a mobile phone. We have customers, they're doing really, really great content with a mobile phone. Just take the photos, take the video, upload them to the LMS and train your employees just by showing them what you're daily doing and creating with this content. It doesn't need to be the 1 million shot content there over 2 hours. It's often enough to help easy your colleagues, like you did in the former times when you were in the home office. So when you're just going to your place, to your workplace, to your colleague and say, come, I help you, I show you how I'm doing this. And you can try to do this the same. And this can be done by a really small mobile phone with some videos uploading and giving this content to your colleagues.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, that gives actually a perfect segue to Marcel to maybe enlighten us on a little bit of a technical aspect here on this question. So, Marcel, how do you see, since your background is in artificial intelligence, how do you see here artificial intelligence supporting the idea of more engaging content that holds the learner's attention?
Yeah, I think this is a very important aspect that now arises, and we now have the capabilities, and the trend is going towards applying machine learning. I will go maybe later a bit deeper into that. Maybe first of all, let's jump a bit back. So regarding this overcrowded topic that also Roman targeted, I think this is a very important aspect in terms of the content itself, and maybe for some applications also on the application level and the feature set level. I think where we tend to go towards is kind of a dilemma of choice, meaning that there's so much available that you really just tend to lose the traction. You do not know where to go, what content you should really work through, and what really brings value. So I think this is a very important aspect. And that is directly connected also to a motivational aspect. So what you can do is, for example, and that's also what Sabine and Roman told, it's at first you try to chunk more the content. You try to have it more accessible at the correct spots. And then what we now also have as capabilities is using machine learning for motivating the people, motivating employees to really get engaged into learning. So what we are investigating, for example, is like personalization of content. You certainly cannot do that without any autonomous task, or at least a semi-autonomous task, because the effort would be way too high. But in the last, let's say, like 7 months, so really like in 2025, we had a really big leap into what LLM usage can do, bringing in like agents and agentic systems, where they can communicate to each other, and they can really perform pretty autonomously certain tasks. So we will see way more of that in the future when it comes to either creating content, but maybe at the start also like enhancing content, changing content's media, and so on.
Okay, so when targeting the specific learners, you're talking about a content directly for the learner. But on a larger scale than for organizations, then is one of the other things that we're also curating content, since there's so much content to select from. Do we also curate content for those larger companies so that they can, say, okay, this is kind of the area I want, and can you like narrow that field down a little bit? Is that also something that we're looking into or doing?
Yes, certainly. So it's not only the personalization on the employee level, but also on the company level. If an LLM, for example, has access to company information, also content that is maybe provided outside of the company, or that is maybe a bit more universal, could be curated to that specific company, focusing on maybe the topics that are of interest there, the workflows that are implemented in there. But that, of course, requires a bit of data usage, so that needs to be somehow present.
Okay. That then, thank you very much for answering the questions for the panel there, or as a complete panel. That brings us to the second challenge that we have, and that is scaling training with limited resources. And on the next slide, we'll also see that one of, it was ranked, what are the main barriers to adopting new learning technologies? And budget constraints were one of the big topics. So I'll let that question start off with, or we'll start that question off with Roman.
Yeah, I just struggled a little bit with the wording. There's also data security reasons why they're struggling and have barriers there. But let's start with budgets. As I said already before, I mean, a mobile helps us already to do some videos and start with this to create content. I wondered a little bit, this budget constraints. There was on the other first top, there was that the budget raised even over the last year. So there's more budget available, but it seems still not enough for the right parts to do how I can scale it up over, let's say, 1,000 or 2,000 users. On one part, when you're starting to scale with users, there is the time where you need the learning management system. A centralized learning management system helps you to automate, and automation is, let's say, the enemy of the budget constraint, because you're just doing things once and you can reuse them the whole time wherever somebody comes on your learning management system. You need to use automated booking. You need to use automatic targeting groups for bringing people into the platform, and you don't care anymore if you have 1,000 users or 10,000 users, by having the same system, the same content, and just with a reporting button, you can get a nice overview of just what your users are doing. So I really think if you're not on the part of the LMS, you have to start with this. And I mean, there are really a lot of LMS on the market for every budget which is there, for everything what you use. Please use their mobiles for creating content. And additionally, there are nice content creation tool. I mean, of course, we also have one with the IMC Express, but a content creation tool makes an expert to a content creator. And it doesn't mean to be the best content in the world, but the content creation tool really also with AI, and I'm sure Marcel will tell us a little bit about this more even in the AI part, but these makes a big easy way for creating content, which is not so much budget related because you just have a few experts and you need a few licenses for creating the content. Use this content and spread it out in your world by using a learning management system. This is the easiest way with less budget to come to a good L&D solution.
Okay, so you would say basically, from what I gather, budget constraints is a valid concern, but it's also somewhat a generic answer because, as you said, there's possibilities within every budget. So there's LMSs that scan a range of budgets. And at the, let's say if you're not ready for LMS, there's other ways to create content via mobile phones or via IMC Express, which would, not generate that many costs. So first of all, you have to, I guess, be aware of what your budget capabilities are and then work within that. And then comes the scalability within that constraint. Okay, let me give the question over to Sabina. What insights do you have to share on that, since you're always working with companies on the leading edge of things? So give us some insights there, please.
Certainly, I would like to focus on another perspective. We see that resistance often arises when technology moves faster than culture. So, we can certainly have great technologies, be it about LMS or other authoring tools, or generally new AI tools that are being implemented within organizations. But what we have seen that even though many organizations implement new tools and they might even have strategies at the management level, but they don't simultaneously address the habits, the processes, or mindsets that are required to actually adopt these new technologies. And that's exactly when friction arises. And that's one of the things that was also highlighted in the report, is that we see limited digital skills among employees as a barrier to adoption. And this is something we currently focus on in the projects that we are doing in the Innovation Lab, to understand how we can focus on skill management within the digital skills, to really understand what are the different learning groups within an organization and what do they need. And once you've identified that, you can accordingly input that into skill management technologies. And what can happen then, that even in small, but especially in large organizations, you can scale learning by tagging courses with the specific skills that they're teaching, and then playing them out to the different employees that learn it, that need to learn these skills. But in any case, I'm sure Marcel will give more input on that as well, is the culture and transformation aspects of things that should not be that should have a high focus whenever new adoption are the key.
So one way to tackle the second most prevalent problem here, resistance to change, is to move further to the right and tackle the limited digital skills in the workforce. And then you basically are able to solve two problems at once. All right, so let's move on to Marcel then. Since you did a nice lead over there, Sabina, thank you very much. Marcel, let's hear your input on that, or your opinion.
Yeah, sure. So as Sabina, you already told that it's a really big change process. Maybe we can also in the AI part go a bit deeper into that on how you would tackle that, because I think it's a general AI topic, to be honest, right? It's not only in the learning field. I think AI implementation, AI usage in companies, there needs to be a good strategy for it, but it also needs to be pushed down and needs to be really leveraged from all levels from the beginning, right? You do not want to implement a system and then say, here's a system, eat it. So that's certainly the most important part here when it comes to using whatever technology. So I maybe want to go a bit deeper also to the topic of how like small to medium-sized companies should tackle the future in terms of learning. So I think tomorrow will be more digital than yesterday, and certainly the day after tomorrow will be more digital than the day before. So I guess learning needs to be combined with technology, especially when we talk now about scaling, right? There's no other way around it. Bigger companies, very big companies, can maybe create a learning unit together and combine it with a very tech-heavy unit to implement solution there on their own. But I don't think that, or at least that's what we also hear from our talks with our companies and customers, that this is something that they might not be able to do because of limited resources, because of capacity issues, or budget reasons, or expertise. So what I would suggest is work together with companies, with learning providers, with learning management system providers that have the capabilities, that really have a strong focus on that, and learn with them together how to use AI and technology in your company. I think this is a better way. I do not want to say that you just want to use another provider and then you say, okay, they will do their AI part, they will do the technology part, we will just apply. But I think it's the better way to also get that knowledge into their own company.
Okay, so Marcel, as we can hear from your input, or basically your insight, that you're very much in favor of leveraging AI to its fullest potential. But I think this actually brings us full circle to what Roman said, and the insight that, you know, for every budget there's an application, and you just have to be willing to go out there and look for it, and be aware of what your constraints are, and then start at some point. And then comes the factor of scalability, and scale up where you can and when you can. And when you reach the point where a LMS becomes viable, then you select the LMS and then scale within. And for the larger companies, you know, they probably do a larger vetting of such a structure because they have more information. So basically, you know, the thing is, there's something out there for everybody to leverage the technologies one way or the other, either to a extreme degree or even smaller steps will get you there too. So that brings us to our third challenge, which is bridging the skills gap and driving career mobility. I think that one's going to be an interesting one, because we have led up to that. A couple of the answers that we've given already leaned towards that direction. And if we look at the next slide, we'll see here that, yeah, one of the biggest challenges when trying to improve skills assessment within your organization, and they found here, the finding was that mapping and analyzing current employee skills to identify gaps. And I think, Sabina, we'll start with you on that one, because you already alluded to that a couple of times in your explanation. So I'll let you take it from here.
Sure. as we've seen in the report, it has been mentioned that skill development is a top priority. 60% of organizations say that is something that they need to prioritize in the coming years. I think it's obvious to everyone in this call that it's clearly linked to demographic changes, fast technological transformations, and that's why there is certainly a need for upskilling and reskilling across the board in companies in all different kinds of sectors. And we've also seen the report that the barriers that go along with this are firstly the difficulty in assessing the current skills in an organization, understanding what is needed for the future, adapting to fast changing skill needs, that is, and also aligning development with business strategy, helping the company to be able to move in directions that you would like to go into. And there's two aspects of that to upskilling, in a sense of making sure that in terms of personalization and within an LMS, making sure that the different target groups get what they need. So again, aligning skills with courses that are tagged with the according skills. And another aspect is, of course, as I mentioned before, showing what different sorts of career opportunities and development paths are made visible if you base it on skills data. But as we have also seen in the projects that we're working on, is that most companies will certainly agree with this and say this is great and this is what we need to do. But it's really difficult to get started on this because again, limited resources also means that if you think about skill management, that seems like a really big, heavy thing to start with. And this is currently what we're working on in our projects to solve this cold start problem, meaning within the LMS, we can manage skills, but how does a company actually first come up with a concept? We can help with that. And then with the help of AI, make sure that skills get very quickly put into the system so that companies can start working with it. And as a final note, we have seen that it is helpful if organizations start with small pilots around this. So if you try to basically transform the whole company with skill management, that often is set up to fail because it's just too difficult. But if you focus, for example, on specific departments or small pilot projects, then it is more easy to show that it actually pays off. So the return on investment is there in terms of putting effort into skill management and then accordingly setting up your internal L&D accordingly.
Okay. I saw Roman inwardly smiling and nodding, I think, to a couple of things you said. So either that or he was writing a couple pointers on a piece of paper there. So Roman, taking from what Sabina said, I think let's take it from LMS perspective. How do we address, or how does IMC address, for example, that need for identifying these gaps? Does the LMS support that? I think Sabina alluded a little bit to it, and that's why you were nodding a little bit. So maybe you can give us a little insight there.
Yeah, I just noted there really some parts what Sabine said, and she's right, because there's one word which we used there in the last months and which is longer clear. That's the so-called cold start issue. And what I also noted here was mapping and analyzing current employee skills to identify the gaps, and that's what I know there. That's mainly what we all want from the skill management. You could also write there, I have an issue to do skill management, because that's exactly what we want. We want to look for the skills which currently our employees, colleagues have, and we want to identify the gaps. That's the whole magic. You could say, I want to have the whole magic. And then, of course, almost 50% are saying, hey, we have an issue with this. But the truth is, you just have an issue with the skill management, and it's difficult. It's a big thing there. And yes, we are really working on this, because for us, it's really important. It's whenever you're looking, it's a big trend, but it's also a trend for over years there. And we hope and we are sure that AI gives a new driver for this, push this again, which I don't want to take this, what Marcel will later explain us, because he's really the expert for this. But We will solve the cold start issue, and it's already solvable when you're looking and following this what Sabine already said. You chunk this in smaller parts. You start with small departments and take from this. Let's take the job description where a lot of skill descriptions are in and put them in the LMS, import them, automatically import them. We, of course, will see in the next times how skill or how you can assess the people to get the skills out by new content formats, by helping of AI, of course, and put this into the platform. When it's into the platform, we have already everything what is there. Also, our LMS can do gap analysis. You can search for recommended courses for your next step. You can give their goal for the next 2 years, and the platform will lead you through all the courses and content until you reach there your skill goal, which you wanted to give there and which you profiled for yourself. So there is already everything there, and it's just really left the access of skills for every employee and really which taxonomy you want to have in your company or which you want to use in your LMS, because that's custom specific. So not every company has the same technology, has the same taxonomy to use there, has the same skills. They're really custom specific. There is no and will not be any taxonomy where there's everything in, and it changes daily.
Okay. Let me jump onto one topic again. You said cold start. Could you explain cold start in the context of L&D? Because cold start, I only remember that from my old car, my old internal combustion engine. It sometimes wouldn't start, so that was the cold start problem that I had. But in this context of L&D, could you give our listeners, those people watching, a little bit more context on cold start?
When you look into the LMS, you would expect from the LMS that there is a set of skills already inside which you could choose. Mm-hmm. That's one part, so you need to have a bigger set. And on the other side, you need to have your employees and they have skills. So you have to put or set these skills regarding to your employees. Mm-hmm. And when you're looking at this and you know that you have companies with 10,000 employees, you can imagine how many skills you need to have already to prepare and how long it takes by manually trapping or drawing the combination, the connection between the skill and the employee. And okay. Only if you have these, you can do your first analysis of gaps, because you can say, hey, we need 10 Java developers and we just have 5 there. So to see this gap. So you need to bring up a lot of information into the system. I mean, afterwards, it's wonderful. You can do nice analysis, but this way of starting first, coming into the drive, getting your car to drive, that you're coming from one place to use it, takes a lot of time. Is the cold start issue or cold starting problem, because you have to do a lot of effort before you can start to use it.
Okay, and then we do a perfect segue to Marcel, who's going to save the day with artificial intelligence and solve our cold start problem. Marcel, what do you think of that? Is that a possibility, or would you like to share any insights in that direction?
Yeah, I mean, the solution won't be that easy, right?
It never is. It never is.
Of course, we can leverage AI for that, right? There are possibilities to use existing information and data to maybe get a bit of a head start on competencies and skills. But I am really on the side that this is a cultural thing. This is something that needs to be really established throughout the company. The thought of really thinking about that, right? I was impressed that this was like the most important challenge, because when we ask people, so when we talk with companies and ask them about that topic, what they did until now, most of the time they reply that they did not do anything. But it is identified as the most important challenge. So this is really, I mean, everything that Roman said, I mean, I can just I can continue on there. I mean, this is it's a wall that needs to be put down, and I think you just need to start, because if you do not start with that, then it won't help if you apply machine learning technologies, LLMs for that. I think you need to. So what I would suggest is you could start with a certain unit, yeah, but you also need to identify like the first mover in your company. Maybe identify, first of all, 5 to 10 people that are interested in this topic. Could also be in different units. And then try to establish a strategy on competencies. Really work yourself in on what these are. How could they be set, and how could they be maybe measured? I think all of these processes are not yet carried out for most parts of the companies. I think this is how you can get started. And once you are at that level, then leveraging AI certainly will have a major impact.
Okay. Looking at let's take a look at the next slide, because I think that gives us the flip side of the coin. So we've talked about initially the idea of not being able to identify the skills and the gaps, or the skill gaps and so forth. But then you have the flip side where skill development is an important part of the overall training strategy of most individuals that responded here, with 45%. Sabina, how do you see that part, or what insights do you have on that?
Yes, I think that is certainly, I'm almost surprised that there is even, 38% who say moderately or slightly, because I think skill management is also one of the terms now that is very hot, that has been used and is seen as a trend. Ideally, of course, any sort of training that you play out to your employees should have a goal, right? It should target a certain skill and skill gap, like Roman said. Otherwise, it would be a waste of money to have a training that does not have a clear strategic focus in terms of filling the skills gaps. At the same time, though, as we've seen, if you really want to conceptually look at skill management, it's something that is coherently implemented within an organization or a certain pilot project, then that, of course, is a little more tricky. But I think with this specific numbers and also the other numbers on identifying skill gaps, it clearly shows that given the times we live in with demographic changes and fast technological changes, that we need to be quicker about targeting the skill gaps that we have in organizations. And all of us have skills gaps, right? And no matter where we are, we should all continuously learn. And the question is, how do you do that? And again, here we look at the skill management, the cultural change, but also aspects like, for example, micro certificates that could help to motivate employees, or Marcel said, finding a group of people that drive it. But in any case, need to start with this, because otherwise companies are lagging behind and are losing our competitive advantage if they do not do this, because some of the jobs that we have will obviously change a lot. I think there is current statistics that claim that up to 50% of job roles will change significantly over the next 5 years even. So there is a need to act quickly and get started, and not having a perfect solution. That's a very German approach, but rather, getting going about it.
Okay. Roman, how do you see that, especially when we're talking from the LMS perspective? How do we support, or how do you support the skills development, which here most everybody has deemed as significant to their training strategy?
Before answering, I just wondered, what is a training without a skill development? So whatever when you're going to a train, I mean, there is no training without it's a small talk perhaps, but even there, you have always skills. Whatever you're doing daily, you will develop skills. Perhaps not the correct one, perhaps not the one which brings you to the next better job, perhaps even worse to another job. But at the end, whatever you're doing a training, you're doing a training strategy, you're consuming any content, and it doesn't matter which content, you're developing any skills. So I just wondered there. Yeah, that it's important. I guess it's clear. It needs to be part of your strategy. And coming back to how you can train, you have to think about which skills will be needed in the future. And you have to look for how you're changing your team to be ready for the future. Skill development is your training, or you're really thinking about what is needed in the future, and this you want to train. I mean, of course, it's nice to know with all the skills what you have in the company, because you don't know, you need an English speaker, a French speaker, whatever you're selecting there in your skill overview, or we have there one. But mostly these are things which you already know. You want to be ready for the future. You want to say, okay, you're searching somebody who will write in the future AI prompts, and to have them, you're looking for people who are really close to learn this, not to know this already. Yes, if you know them, what people really daily work, what skills they have, but you want to bring them on a development part. And to do this, you have to think about your future, which skills will be needed in the future. You have to create a development part for these skills, and then put them in your training strategy and say, we have a training strategy which will help us in the future, which will lead the company in the future, and which will let and give them all the skills which you need there.
Okay. Very insightful, and I like how you opened it, because that gave me a new perspective on this slide that it didn't have. Of course, skills without development doesn't really make sense in that sense. So you hit that one right out the park. Okay, Marcel, that leaves the question open to you, and let's see if you can follow that up as nicely as Roman did.
There's not that much else to say, to be honest, right? I mean, this is it's the skill development is like the main aspect of it, right? Of course, when Roman said, now you all the time when you consume, you gain a skill. I thought about some examples and tried to think about, is there some content out there where you really cannot derive any skill out of? I think this will be hard. So this will be just like very
the quality of the content, because I mean, I would always say you should have more knowledge coming out of something than you did before, just like in the case of this discussion. So you should have a better idea or more knowledge on these topics of the challenges than you did before. Hopefully.
I mean, the only thing that I can think of is that you consume content that you already know, for example, right? Okay. So, and this also perfectly fits to kind of assessing the skills, the competencies, the current competencies, the skill level. Because if you have not done that correctly, then maybe for a training you have 30-40% of the time that you invest that won't get you any further. So I think that's also a good aspect, Kenneth. Yeah.
Okay. I would agree that makes sense. So if you're doing something, or if you're actually assigned to develop in something that you already have done, and you spend 30% of the time is actually wasted time, then that's not very efficient use of your time, or correctly identifying what skills you need to advance. Okay, so let's move on to the last part, which Marcel is definitely your part. This is where you can shine even more than you have before, making AI work for L&D without sacrificing trust. So that's the challenge that everybody's facing. And if we look at the next slide, it asks, what are your concerns when regarding the implementation of AI-based solutions in your learning ecosystem? And the top concern is data security. So Marcel, does that surprise you that that is the top concern?
It doesn't surprise me at all, because that's what we all the time hear. But in my opinion, I don't think this is a major problem. I think there are ways, especially in the last year, that have been developed. Of course, this has not broadly being pushed towards everybody, but there are a lot of technical possibilities now to make data security way better in terms of LLMs. So you have a bit more, let's say, control over where you place which information and which information can be accessed by which LLM, for example, or which agent. So you have like a compartmentalized a system where you, for example, have like a memory system that could be completely personalized. I mean, I think most of you know that when you use ChatGPT, they also have a kind of a memory system where they say this is just for you, right? What is stored in the memory can only be accessed when you use the chat. So of course the data is somewhere else, and data location and so on is something that can be discussed, should be discussed, and should be decided on. But I think all data security problems can be solved. Also when, for example, using information that is very sensitive to the company, you could place it in a database. You could have an LLM that is only fine-tuned on that. You could have a the RAG system, so retrieval augmented generation, where you can access documents that only can be accessed with that key. And I don't see that as much of a hurdle, but of course we know that also from previous technological advances, that this is an issue, also especially in German and EU, that are in general more restrictive on that.
Well, let me interject something. Isn't that kind of like the thing of user beware? I mean, there were other technologies that we used, like the messaging technology, and that was also the top concern there was, data security. When you're messaging using, the most famous, messaging app, there were security concerns there, and on basis of that, other apps were created that were then more safe, which then I guess the American government didn't really think that was that well, because they used it for sending their plans all around the world, as we later found out. So little side note on that. But how does it, I mean, when you boil it down to the user though, I think the user still sometimes maybe the data security isn't like a concern, but not being aware of
Yes.
what you're doing with your data.
Okay, I think this is also a general topic on using AI, understanding AI. So what I would suggest for all companies is to really, in a widespread manner, educate on AI. AI, not the technical implementation of UI, but of AI, but to understand how it is working, to understand how you can interpret the results, right? There are some very basic concepts that needs to be learned also, if you have not really used anything in that way, because we are not used to that as a human using technology. We are very much on the deterministic side, where if you do something, you always get the same output, and this is now just not the case anymore. So you need to work with the AI more, and need to really see it as a more a cooperation partner. And then the third thing is how you could integrate that. Maybe that is something that not everybody needs to be aware of, but certainly a lot of, so some people in the company need to be aware of it.
Well, let me give this question to Roman because he was nodding, and I know from exchanges with Roman, Roman was the data security officer. So I mean, this was one very, very hot topic, one that you had to immediately react to. So maybe tell our audience how you handled that challenge.
Yeah, let me first look again at this, what's written there, data security concerns. I guess people often put their data protection concerns and data security concerns together in one topic. And
Okay.
that's something where we have to look for. When we're looking at the data protection part, we're transferring person data worldwide, and that's one concern, and it's fine with this because AI technology mostly came from US, but and there with Marcel, there are good alternatives in Europe. So the first question, which everybody should ask before using the AI or using any vendor software which includes AI, where is the AI located? So where's the magic happening? So, and that's what you have to ask for every AI you're going to use. So if you're using OpenAI in US, you're transferring your data to US. If this is okay for you, fine, go on and use it. If it's not okay for you, try to find OpenAI in Europe or try to find an alternative for you in Europe. And I mean, there are good European alternatives, which are from the quality not worse than using the US guys, but you have to find and implement them. And you have to force your software vendor to tell you which AI is used. So people have to ask. And when you're looking what Marcel said you have to educate your people that you understand a little bit about the AI. They need this to ask the right question and to understand the answers from the vendors. So they need to ask which data is transferred to the AI. Because if I'm just transferring some skills of non-people, so just the skills and let them there whatever do with this, it's fine. There is no security issue or data protection issue with this. If I'm transferring the whole database to the AI system, of course, we have a different issue there, and we have to look and to check for this. The second data security part, so besides the data protection part, is, I guess, a concern which comes up with how we are integrating AI in our daily work and what does the AI then do in our, let's say, daily work. So do they transport taking out information? That's a concern which always comes up with new technologies. That's not technology AI related. When the cloud came up, everybody was saying, oh, we have concerns about using the cloud. So, and the answer is then look at it, understand, and decide if it's for your case, and decide what is the requirement for your case, which we can solve with a different technology, or at least with a different vendor.
Okay, then let's move the question then to Sabine. What are your impressions or your experiences that you've done with your customers and colleagues that you work with?
Certainly, data security, that's always one of the main topics. I think Marcel and Roman have exhaustively answered that question. I think two things I would like to add. What we've also seen with clients are 3, cost effectiveness and ROI uncertainties, and also user adoption and change management challenges, because on a scale from 1 to 5, these are very close to data security concerns on the list. And I think the one important thing is before adopting an AI, obviously you need to see if there's a business case. So within L&D, is there an AI assisted authoring tool that saves me time? Then yes, that's great. if I have in skill management now the option to use AI to be assisted and make something possible that wasn't previously possible because it would have taken 10 times as much time, then you have a business case. And I think once you have decided on that and you go ahead with this, you obviously need to focus on what do I need to do to have user adoption and certain change management processes. And that starts, like Marcel was outlining earlier, with really working with the people and understanding how do you go about this. Because only if they're educated, they can use it. And only once you use it, you can make people accountable to actually use more efficient processes that include such tools.
Okay. We're a little bit over the time, but we started a little later, so I'll indulge in two more questions since it's a AI topic. I'm going to let Marcel close this out. The initial lead question was without sacrificing trust. And I see here on this screen here, we have ethical implications is relatively low. Do those two, do you see any conflict in that, or do you see trust and ethical implications? Are those two things that go hand in hand for you?
Yes, so this question is actually something we could talk 1 hour about alone, right? So this is very hard to close down on in a couple of
Sorry,
minutes.
it was an open question, but
So it is a very, very important part of using machine learning and LLMs and AI in general. You need to be aware of it. It's very important that you need to be aware of it. It's also part of this kind of basic education on how to interpret results and be aware of that some of the results could be influenced by somehow different sets or data sets that the model was being fed. So this is really a whole big topic. I'm sorry that I cannot answer you the question any more deeper. It's you need to have a look at it. I think more the big providers and everyone who is training on LLMs, they kind of I want to push them to really look into that and to make sure that this kind of existing problem is being solved. I am not sure if a company who will apply it even has a lot of chances on fixing that existing problem. Yeah. So this is actually something that is that needs to be aware of, but it's not hard to solve from a user point of view. But that is my opinion. Maybe the others have another one. Maybe I would open that.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's end with that. I think you've all done an admirable job in answering the questions and the challenges that pose our L&D community. So let's move to the last part, and that would be our Q&A. So far in the chat, there haven't been any questions, but feel free. The floor is now open to questions if you should have any questions. So I'll wait a brief moment. If not, you can also write us directly, and we'll answer any questions offline. Okay, I don't see anybody typing. So at this point, then I would say that includes our discussion. Thank you very much to Sabine, Roman, and Marcel for giving us their insights and sharing that with us on what they believe and see and understand on the basis of this report. And of course, you can also download the report. The link is on the next page. And I would like to say thank you very much for participating. And like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to address us and we'll do our best to answer them. So thank you very much and have a nice day.